What's up, guys? Working in the shop tonight. Benches are dirty because we are on crunch time trying to finish some builds. I'm putting together some R-Hop barrel assemblies, and I realized I never made a video on how I flatten buckings. I talked about how I R-Hop, ADHD and not so ADHD edition. Just like in those videos where you have to cherry pick the patch, it's very important that you cherry pick the bucking to cater to your specific build. The truth is there's no end-all be-all bucking for every single setup. When you start playing around with different brands of inner barrels and different brands and models of hop-up chambers, you start to find that that go-to bucking that you relied on so much for your M4 builds doesn't really work that well in your weird LMG builds or whatever have you. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because it kind of justifies my reasoning for R-hopping, even though there's a bunch of all-in-one buckings out on the market, like Maple Leaves, the 4UAD just came out, and there's a whole bunch of other buckings from different manufacturers that pretty much do what R-hopping does, where it gives you a nice concave or flat contact surface for the BB that's extended along the length of the barrel window. The only problem with those all-in-ones is that they only really work in the setups that they really want to work in. Otherwise, you find yourself having to modify the hop-up bucking to work well in the setup, or now you have to cherry pick some more expensive, less readily available parts, such as hop-up chambers and inner barrels. So part of the beauty of the R-hop is that by choosing the barrel that you like, you can R-hop it and you know that you're going to have a great contact surface for the BB. Now you can just cherry pick the rest of the bucking for all the other jobs that the bucking has. So when I'm doing an AEG build and I'm using one of these brands of barrels in a Krytac hop-up chamber, I found that just Krytac orange buckings work really well, but it does require me to modify them. So I'm going to show you guys how I modify it now. So you want to take your bucking and you want to make it inside out. And then I just take a inner barrel piece that I have lying around and I put that on there. I put a little bit of silicone on it. And then I take it to my bench grinder. You want to grind that bucking down, but you don't want to go too much. If you go too much and you start taking off the rest of the bucking, then you can start having some other issues. I like to get it down as flat and as evenly as I can, and then I finish it off with sandpaper, and I sand it very similar to how I sand R-hop patches. I 3D printed a little box to hold my various grits of sandpaper that I cut into strips. I go from like 400 to 2000 when I'm R-hopping barrels. You don't have to go that crazy with a bucking. I start with 800. I don't want to get too aggressive and start removing too much of the rest of the bucking. Superlube silicone oil is my best friend right now because it's going to help me do this sanding without removing a whole lot and without yanking and stretching and tearing the bucking. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to go back and forth. And as I do this, I'm going to start to see that that mound is going to start disappearing. All right, and then I'm going to run a nail just over where that mound was to see if I can feel any humps and bumps and dips and stuff and make sure that it's flat. And right now it's flat. You are still going to see like a little remnants of the mound. So it's going to be really important that you just feel for it and make sure that it is flat. Then I go to 1500 just to kind of finish it off. Not super necessary, but it's like an OCD thing of mine. I like to do that. And notice that the inner barrel is clamped, but the bucking is also clamped with it. It's not clamped super tight. I'm not trying to tear or damage the bucking. Then here, I take an old cap from a bottle of BBs, and I fill it with rubbing alcohol, and I put the bucking in there. And I'm just going to kind of let it sit in here for a few seconds. And then when I take it out, I'm going to use a paper towel and Q-tips and stuff, and I'm going to wipe off all the silicone and alcohol and grease and stuff. But while it's still wet, I'm actually going to go ahead and revert it back from being inside out. So now I can take it out. I found this little bent pair of needle nose pliers to be like the most effective tool for doing this. Now, rubbing alcohol is not going to dissolve your bucking. That is a myth. And now we have this inside the hop-up without the nub. There's no nub on the patch contacting the BB. Right, we're going to put that down there. Look at that. It retained the BB quite a bit. Now let's just give it a little nudge, and it falls right through. That's exactly what you want, at least when you're doing an AEG build. There you go.